You don't notice it at first. It happens quietly, slowly, almost softly. The world does not take you by force. It molds you by habit. Before you even learn how to speak, before you understand who you are, something begins carving its initials into your soul. Expectations, norms, rules, labels, invisible demands. You don't remember agreeing to any of them, but they follow you like a shadow. Karl Marx understood this deeply, not only in an economic sense, but in a human one. He believed that the world does not simply exist around you. It presses itself onto you, shaping your thoughts, your fears, your identity, without ever asking permission. And maybe that's why you feel the way you feel sometimes. A strange heaviness, a quiet sense of imbalance, a feeling that you're living a life that doesn't fully belong to you. It's not because something is wrong with you. It's because the world has been speaking into your mind long before you learned to speak back. And tonight, we begin to speak back. Marx said something powerful, a sentence people often misunderstand, but it contains a secret about your own inner freedom. The ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas, meaning the world's dominant voices become the voices inside your head. The world's priorities become the priorities you think you chose. The world's noise becomes the noise that drowns out your own soul. Think about it. Who taught you what success is? Who told you what beauty should look like? Who decided what you must fear? Who whispered that you must always prove yourself? Who made you feel guilty for wanting rest, softness, or peace? You didn't design these ideas. They were delivered to you, placed inside you, before you had the strength to say no. This is how the world shapes you without permission. And for the first time in your life, you are allowed to pause, breathe, and ask, which part of me is truly mine? There's a moment, a turning point, when a human being begins to wake up. Not a dramatic explosion, not a sudden transformation, just a quiet shift. A whisper inside you that says, I think I've been living too much for others. I think I've been carrying beliefs that don't belong to me. I think I forgot who I was before the world told me who to be. Marx believed that liberation begins with awareness, not revolution outside, but revolution inside. Awareness of the forces that shaped you, the expectations that controlled you, the roles you were pushed into, the dreams you abandoned because someone convinced you they were impractical, the parts of yourself you buried to survive. Inner awareness is not rebellion, it is returning to the self you were becoming before the world interrupted you. And if you feel lost, tired, confused about who you are, there is nothing wrong with you. It simply means your soul is waking up, because at some point, we all begin to realize you didn't come into this world to be a product. You came to be a person. You didn't come here to fit a mold. You came to create your shape. You didn't come here to walk a pre-written path. You came to write your own. And Marx's deepest message the one people rarely talk about, is this. Freedom begins the moment you notice the chains you didn't know you were wearing. Tonight is about noticing, about becoming gently aware, about finally seeing the invisible hands that shaped your mind, so you can slowly, lovingly reclaim yourself from them. Not through anger, not through rebellion, but through awakening. Because the moment you become aware, the world can no longer shape you without your permission. Sometimes the most dangerous prisons are the ones we never notice we're living in. Not because the door is locked, but because we've forgotten there was a door in the first place. Marx believed this was humanity's quietest tragedy. He saw people who thought they were choosing their lives, when in reality, the world had already chosen for them. Their desires, their dreams, their ambitions, even the rhythm of their days, all silently sculpted by forces they never questioned. Work, expectation, tradition, fear, the need to belong, the need to not disappoint, the need to survive. And this is where Marx becomes not just a political thinker, but a guide for the inner life. Because what he truly feared wasn't poverty. It wasn't inequality. It wasn't even exploitation. It was the slow death of the human soul that happens when a person loses the right to decide who they are. He called it alienation, but the word does not mean what most people assume. To Marx, alienation was not simply separation from one's work. It was the separation from oneself. It was waking up one morning and realizing, I don't know if this dream was ever mine. And maybe you felt it too. That quiet, haunting moment, when you sit alone at night, after all the noise has settled, and you feel something inside you whisper, almost afraid to speak, is this really who I am? We are taught to silence that voice, to ignore it, to call it weakness, to call it confusion, to call it being ungrateful for the life we already have. But Marx would say, no, that voice is the one thing in you that is still alive. Because alienation isn't only something that happens in factories. It happens in relationships, in families, in society, in dreams that were handed to you instead of born from you. It happens every time you betray yourself, just to fit inside a world that never asked what you wanted in the first place. And here is the painful truth Marx wanted you to face gently, without fear. The world shapes you the most when you are too tired, too distracted, or too afraid to shape yourself. Look at your life for a moment, not with judgment, but with soft awareness. Who taught you what success is? Who taught you what failure means? Where did your idea of a good life come from? Your parents? Your community? A culture that worships productivity more than peace? A system that rewards exhaustion more than authenticity? Marx isn't asking you to hate society. He's asking you to understand when society has quietly become the voice inside your head. Because the most powerful form of control is not force, it's influence. Not domination, but conditioning. Not chains, but expectations. Most people never escape because they never see the bars. And here is the quiet heartbreak. Many souls do not die once. They die slowly, through 1,000 small surrenders. You give up a little of yourself to keep the peace. You give up a little more to be accepted. You give up another piece to be responsible. You sacrifice your joy to be realistic. You sacrifice your fire to be normal. Until one day, you realize you are loved for who you have become, but not for who you truly are. This is the moment Marx wants to hold your shoulders gently and say, "Wake up. The world has shaped you, but you can still shape yourself back." Because alienation is not permanent. Awareness is the cure, and awareness begins with the simplest, hardest question. What is mine, and what did the world place inside me without permission? Your fears, are they yours? Your insecurities, who planted them? Your goals, are they the ones your soul asked for, or the ones society rewarded? You were not born to be a copy of the world around you. You were born to be a creator of the world within you. That is the heart of Marx's inner philosophy. Not rebellion against others, but reunion with yourself. He reminds you that there is a version of you, a truer you, that exists beneath everything you've been taught. A self untouched by pressure, untamed by expectation, unburdened by noise. A self whose desires are genuine, whose dreams are natural, whose life is chosen, not inherited. And if you listen carefully, you can still feel that self breathing under the rubble. Maybe you lost it in the rush to survive. Maybe the world buried it under responsibilities. Maybe life hardened you until you forgot softness was ever allowed. But the self you abandoned never abandoned you. It waits in those quiet moments when you stare out of a window without reason. It lives in the ache you feel when something in your life is wrong, but you can't explain why. It rises in the discomfort that won't leave you alone. The discomfort that whispers, "You were meant for more than this." Not more money, not more status, not more praise, more you. And this is where Marx becomes almost spiritual. He believes that awakening begins the moment you decide to reclaim even one small piece of yourself from a world that took it without asking. You don't need to fight everything at once. You don't need to break your life open in a single day. You only need to begin with honesty. What part of my life does not belong to me? You may be surprised at the answers, because freedom does not start when the world stops controlling you. It starts when you stop controlling yourself with the world's beliefs. You can return your soul to its rightful owner one decision at a time. Say no when your truth says no. Say yes when your heart says yes. Let go of labels you never chose. Let go of roles that never fit. Let go of dreams that never felt alive in your hands. Start reshaping yourself with the same quiet power that the world once used to shape you. And soon, something beautiful will happen. The world will lose its control over you, not because it disappeared, but because you learned to see it clearly. Once you see the strings, they can no longer pull you. Once you understand the conditioning, it can no longer define you. Once you recognize alienation, you can no longer remain alienated. You will begin to recognize your own voice, as something separate from the voice of the world. And that is the first breath of inner liberation. There is a moment in every human life when silence becomes a teacher. Maybe it happens late at night, when the world has quieted down, and you finally hear the parts of yourself that have been whispering beneath the noise. Or maybe it happens after a heartbreak, after a betrayal, after losing something you thought you could never live without, and suddenly you begin to see the world differently. Marx believed that society is always shaping us, often without our awareness. He warned that the world plants thoughts inside us long before we learn to think for ourselves. And the deepest healing begins the day we recognize this truth. So now, in this final part, I want you to imagine something. Imagine stepping outside of everything, your routines, your labels, your fears, your expectations, even the version of yourself you've been forced to become. Imagine looking at your life as if it belonged to someone you deeply love. What would you say to them? Would you judge them? Would you shame them? Would you tell them they should be stronger, faster, smarter, more successful? No. You would say, you are doing the best you can in a world that tries to shape you before you even understand yourself. And that is what Marx wanted you to understand. You didn't become who you are by accident. You became who you are because society, routines, environments, families, schools, fears, and pressures sculpted you, sometimes gently, sometimes brutally, sometimes silently. Marx called this the invisible machinery of the world. We call it life. But here's the twist, the one Marx quietly hoped you'd see. You are not just a product of your environment. You are also the one who can rise above it. Because the moment you notice the forces shaping you, you rise above them. Awareness becomes rebellion. Clarity becomes strength. Reflection becomes liberation. And this is where your healing begins. Because now you're not moving blindly. Now you're not living someone else's script. Now you're not trapped in inherited fears or borrowed dreams. You're awake. Marx believed that a person who knows themselves cannot be controlled. Not by expectations, not by judgment, not by past wounds, not by societal noise. He said, in essence, the first step to freedom is seeing the cage. And the cage is not always physical. Sometimes the cage is a belief. Sometimes it is an old story. Sometimes it is the quiet voice inside you that says, you're not enough. You don't deserve more. Stay where you are. Don't try. You weren't born with these thoughts. Someone gave them to you. The world shaped them inside you without your permission. But now you see them. And seeing is the beginning of becoming untouchable. Let's talk about pain, because Marx believed something shocking. Pain is often the place where society's influence becomes most visible. When someone leaves you and you suddenly feel unworthy. When you lose a job and you suddenly feel like a failure. When you are criticized and you suddenly feel small. Those feelings don't come from your soul. They come from what the world taught you to value. Status, validation, approval, recognition, productivity, comparison.
These are society's standards, not your heart's. Marx wanted you to see that the world conditions you to chase things that keep you exhausted. But your soul only craves one thing: meaning. And meaning cannot be bought. It cannot be compared. It cannot be taken away by another person's opinion.
It grows inside you the moment you claim ownership of your mind. So let me ask you something quietly, gently. Whose life are you living? The life your heart desires, or the life the world demanded? Whose dreams are you chasing? Your own, or the ones someone said you should want? How many of your fears were inherited? How many of your doubts were planted? How many of your limitations were taught to you before you even had a voice? You were shaped, but you can reshape. You were conditioned, but you can unlearn. You were guided, but you can take the wheel. Your mind is yours again the moment you decide it is. Marx's deeper message wasn't about political struggle. It was about the human soul. He believed every soul has a hidden fire, a strength waiting to be reclaimed when you finally stop living on automatic mode. The world may push you, but it cannot define you. The world may judge you, but it cannot see your full journey. The world may distract you, but it cannot reach the quiet truth resting inside your heart. The moment you turn inward, you step outside the machinery of society and into the authority of your own existence. And something powerful happens. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop chasing validation. You stop begging the world to tell you your worth. You begin to walk in a different way, not with arrogance, but with a calm certainty. A certainty that says, I know who I am, and I am not shaped by accident anymore. However, listen closely. Your past did not break you. It shaped you, but it does not own you. Your trauma did not destroy you. It carved space inside you to understand life more deeply. Your losses did not diminish you. They expanded your heart in ways the world may never see. You are not defined by what happened to you, but by the strength with which you refuse to disappear. Marx believed that awareness is the first step toward reclaiming your power, and the second step is refusing to go back to sleep. Now I want you to imagine one more thing. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a new kind of clarity. You look at your life, your relationships, your fears, your habits, your dreams, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel calm. Because now you understand that everything around you was shaping you, but now you are shaping it back. Your choices are conscious. Your boundaries are intentional. Your hopes are yours alone. Your voice is steady. Your heart is awake. You are no longer a passenger inside your own life. You are the author. And once you reach this point, the world cannot pull you back into unconsciousness. You will never again let someone else decide your worth. You will never again shrink yourself to fit into someone else's story. You will never again give the world permission to build your identity for you. Because you finally understand the truth Marx wanted you to see. The world may shape you, but once you awaken, you become the one who shapes the world. And now your journey begins, not with rebellion, but with awareness. Not with noise, but with clarity. Not with rage, but with a quiet revolution inside your soul. You are stepping into a new life, a life where you no longer move unconsciously through the expectations of others, but consciously through the truth of who you are. This is the power Marx wanted you to discover. The power to awaken, to question, to understand, to reclaim, and to become the author of your own existence. And that journey starts right now.